All right, so the fourth assignment is going to give us a chance to practice managing state inside of an application. One of the challenges that we limitations that we have right now is that when you reload the application that we are building, it doesn't remember where it was, right? If you had navigated away from one page and it's in another page, there's no way that it can survive the refresh, right? It just resets the entire state of the application going back to its initial application. So we'd like to be able to encode the state in the URL so that we can even if the browser refreshes, right, we can survive that refresh, right, and reconstitute the page based on the encoding of the state in the URL. It's a very common practice in single page applications, dynamic applications where you can either bookmark or even copy the URL and send it over email to somebody. They click on that URL and they see exactly the same content that you see, right, even though the page doesn't physically exist, right? It's recreated dynamically from scratch based on the encoding of the state on the URL. Make sense? So we'll introduce that technique using React router mechanisms, and also we are going to make use of the Redux library, which allows us to maintain state in a single place. It allows us to create basically, finite state machines that take as arguments the current state, take as arguments a certain set of events, and then calculate what the next state should be. Meaning, so it knows where it is, and based on the event, it'll transition. And instead of having to have a containers that share with its children, and state goes back and forth between these, and events going back and forth, and it's being very awkward, the Redux is going to allow us to have like a single place that we can then share with everyone, right? And then they can all look at what the state is, right? And cause these transitions and then propagate across the entire application. So it's going to be a different way of managing that state. So we're going to focus on implementing the course editor, and now the course editor for the assignment that you're working on is completely static. The current course editor is completely static, although you might have broken it out into multiple modules, right? Multiple components, right? You have the module list on the left-hand side, the tabs on the top, topics below, and so on and so forth. So for this assignment, we're actually going to make it dynamic, right? We're going to make it for real. We're going to have on the left-hand side, you have the list of modules, which is going to be the modules for a particular course that has been selected, right? So we're going to have the title of the current selected course, right? And these modules are for that particular course. If you select a particular module, then you see the lessons that are associated to that module. And if you select a lesson, you see the topics for that lesson. Make sense? Right? Other than that, everything else is just cosmetics, right? On certain minutia here. That if you click anywhere in the module, it selects it. It is the currently selected module, so it highlights it. And then everything else obviously works the way I just described. Normally, you only have a pencil, right? And but if you click on that pencil, it also highlights it as being the current course, the current module, right? But it hides the pencil and it shows instead the delete button and a save button, right? Plus an input field. Yes. No, only one, right? There's only one ever selected. Excuse me, right? No, it should when you edit, it becomes the selected. So even though it's shown here that it's two are highlighted, I just wanted to display it when it was not being edited and when it was being edited. So for the row needs to know whether I am selected or I'm being edited. In both cases, I am highlighted. Yes.
Is that also the behavior we want for like this assignment
So the previous assignment did not quite specify, and it's kind of vague. So I'll leave it open to interpretation, and we'll give you either one. Okay. But in this one, I think it's pretty clear on the way it wants to behave, right? So only one is ever highlighted, and it's either because you've been selected or because you're being edited. Okay. Once we do an OK and save, then it goes back to just being selected, right? So it's replaced by the new label, and the buttons are hidden, and then it goes back to just the pencil. Okay. All right, and that's the same for the tabs. That's the same for the pills. Same thing. Also, another thing here, when you click on the plus sign, it adds a brand new module, right, with the default name of new module. Right, modules can have the same name. Presumably you're going to go back in there and edit it to be some other name, right? Later on, we might want to add being able to drag and drop and move this up and down, but we're not going to do this now. We'll do that a little later. So that's the same thing for the tabs. Clicking on the plus sign over here adds a new tab, and by default they all have just a pencil, right? And if you click on it, it becomes the currently selected, and you see it highlighted here as a tab, right? But if you click on the pencil, you see the edit and the delete and the save button, and it becomes the currently selected tab. Okay, and the same thing for the topic. Everybody good? All right. So for 5 points, create routing mechanisms that allow you to navigate between the course list. Right, the course list can be rendered either as a table or a grid, but in general, I'll call it course list. So from the course list, you need to be able to navigate to the course editor, right, using the new routing mechanism that we're going to introduce today. Right, so 5 points for that. You need to pass in that routing. You're going to pass an argument saying, "Oh, this is the course that is currently selected. Here's the ID of the currently selected course, and then I need to load the modules for that particular course." Yes. So 5 points for that. And then for 30 points, create the individual modules, right? This list module list on the left, the tabs another 10 points, and then the topics another 10 points. So 10 points each, right? So the module is 10 points, the lessons are 10 points, and the pills are 10 points. Everybody good? So these are the components. If you want to break them out into multiple components, that's fine. Right? If you want to, so presumably this module list could be, one big module container, right? And under that, there could be several module list items if you want to do that. Or if you want to leave it in one single one, that's fine. Same thing for the tabs. You could be, a big tab that iterates over multiple tabs, smaller components, right? I'll leave that up to you if you want to break it out into that like that. So 10 points each. Also, I think that the descriptions here are identical to each other. The only difference is that this one talks about how the module behaves, this is how the tabs behave, and this is how the topics behave in the pills, right? But the description should be identical. If they're not, point that out to me, please. Right, they should all behave the same. So for another 30 points, each one, this list of modules needs to be stored somewhere, right, in the database. So we need a service that will give us the CRUD operations to be able to create a module for a given course, right? Needs to be able to retrieve the modules for a given course, right? I have to be able to remove a module, right? I need to be able to update a module, yes? So all those 4 or 5 CRUD operations need to live in a service, all right? And we've already written 2 services, I believe, right? And you must be getting the hang of them, right? They're almost all identical to each other, right? So you should be able to just copy and paste an old service, right, and tweak it for this. But you need 3 services. You need one that manages all the CRUD operations for the modules, the CRUD operations for the lessons, and the CRUD operations for the topics, right? And we'll get you started on that. Yes.
So I'm no programmer, but it sounds like it would be better if there was just one operation that took in.
Yes, and we'll do that as well. Okay. Yeah. These will be separate collections that keep this independent. So there's the module components. So here are the services. So again, 10 points for each service. Right. So here are the CRUD operations for the module service, the lesson service, and the topic service. I believe you need at least 4 of them. You might not need this one over here. So I've made it optional. Right. Meaning get a module. Given the ID of a module, fetch me that module. You might not need it. So I made it optional. If you need it, go ahead and create it. Okay. So same thing for the lessons, the CRUD operations for the lessons and the CRUD operations for the topics, 10 points each. Then you'll need to implement the finite state machines, right? That say, if you are in this state, and you click and then generate this event, you need to calculate the next state, right? And that we're going to implement them using reducers, right? So which we might get started today. These are the state machine that that manages the modules are going to be implemented in the module reducer, and these are the events that it can handle. Again, this might be optional. You might not need that. These are the events for the lessons and for the topic. Okay, and we'll get you going in at least 1.5 of them, right? So you'll then finish up the other half. And for another 5 points, make sure that everything has the right naming convention. Things live in the correct directories, right? That you're using ES6 arrow functions. That you're using all the best practices that we've been discussing here in class. Okay. All right. That's the assignment. Any questions? All right. Let's get started. Yes.
Where do we put CSS files in the React projects?
So yeah, let's take a look at that.